When I talk about Fave or FavePay, I believe the first thing that comes to your mind is their phone app or deals. Now, when I speak about the culture and people in Fave, you'll probably liken them to their somewhat similar competitor, Shopee, and the words fun, exciting, and innovative might then come to your mind. Now, what you wouldn't probably expect is that for Fave to be this successful, they had to overcome a dark past, one that led to an almost 180-degree change in their culture and leadership strategy. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Kenneth, and together with me are my team members, Amanda, Josie, Olivia, and Desmond. Today, we will be bringing you on our journey where we explored leadership through an eventful transition that made Faith what it is today. Here is our presentation agenda where we will first share about Faith's leadership through transition, followed by our team's learning journey. To help you understand better, Fave delivers QR payment experiences to customers and provide payment and loyalty solutions to offline merchants. Their mission is simple: to accelerate offline world's transition to a digital economy by focusing on merchants' growth and their stakeholders. Now, as you can see, Fave acquired Groupon back in 2016 before launching FavePay, and in recent days, they have shifted to a fully virtual workplace during COVID-19 pandemic. As such, there were definitely some unique topics that we could explore, such as leading Faith through an acquisition, through digitization, through COVID-19, and even through a potential future expansion. Eventually, we decided to study the specific challenge of leading Faith through an acquisition of Groupon because of its unique context that involves the specific stage of development from Groupon to Faith. An acquisition would definitely mean an inevitable change, and this made us want to share with you more about how Faith has managed to lead through changes experienced during this acquisition, particularly the changes in culture and leadership strategy. To help you narrow down our scope, we will be exploring the challenges and threats of leadership in their Singapore business unit at different levels of leadership. Now, we interviewed two extremely relevant employees in Faith who are also both previously ex-Groupon employees, namely the Managing Director in Singapore, Ike Pong, or AP for short, and their Senior Business Development Manager, Win. Now, applying Chan's LIC framework, for Groupon, it was a large global MNC with vertical hierarchy, and the top management were mainly American expatriates. Conversely, Faith is a small startup with a flatter hierarchy, and their top management are the regional leaders from Singapore, Indonesia, and Malaysia. We noticed the stark difference of how Groupon led to a sales-driven culture, while Faith fostered a people-driven culture. Externally, we observed how Groupon was faced with the need to compete and drive sales up, while Fave was faced with the need to innovate, digitize, and satisfy merchants and customers. Comparing their mission and purpose as well, Groupon's was to connect local commerce, increase consumer buying, and drive more business to local merchants, which greatly differs from Fave's mission to accelerate the offline world transition to the digital economy. While both desired outcomes were similar in striving to dominate the global e-commerce market, Faith had a larger vision of creating a cashless society. With that, I'll now hand over my time to Desmond to share more about our second part of the LIC analysis. Desmond, please.
Okay. Thank you, Kenneth. Now, based on the context identified by Kenneth, Groupon's leadership across supermodel A and B will exhibit values that are more sales-driven and appreciate order and structure, while Fave leadership across supermodel B and C exhibit values that are more people-driven and appreciate collaboration and innovation. Additionally, Groupon focus more on positional bargaining competency and independent thinking, while Fave focus on persuasion and collaborative thinking. Furthermore, Groupon's leadership style seems to be more transactional and less transformational compared to Fave. Ultimately, we hope that our thorough analysis helps you understand that, unlike other companies, our identified leadership values, styles, and competency exist in Fave and Groupon across all Super's mental models because of the specific context that Fave and Groupons operate in and due to the acquisition that specifically occurs for Fave. From the LIC of Groupon and Fave, we can tell that they are internally different. And with the situation where Fave transferred most of their employees from Groupon, changes equates to challenges. Hence, the two challenges that we highlighted are on influencing organizational culture and actualizing DAC in Fave. Before the first challenge, allow me to introduce their organizational culture. Both the companies showed a strong organizational culture where leaders and employees portrayed strong identity and commitment towards certain values and objectives. However, strong culture does not necessitate that it is a good culture. So let us look into some of the differences in culture based on Eggles's Sunshine 3 levels of culture. On the tip of the iceberg, the artifacts. Some of the cultures were being brought over, such as the open table concept and no cubicle style arrangement showing openness. However, differences start to show where Groupon portrayed a more traditional side with the technology on offline, desktop app, and hierarchical structure, where Fave is more innovative and kept up the trend on mobile app and flat organizational structure. Moving deeper, we uncover a larger difference in terms of values, behaviors, and expectations. On Groupon side, what comes out strongly is the lack of human relationship from the focus on performance and customers, which is reinforced with the sales and profit expectations with no team bonding activities. Now, on the Fave side, there's more teamwork, more human touches with values focusing on people and stakeholders such as merchants and behaviors that bonds and recognize each individual in company. For more of this, it brings us to the underlying values of expectations of Groupon and Fave. As mentioned, from being traditional and lack of human relationship due to the focus of performance and sales in Groupon, it reflects on the underlying values of the lack of receptivity to innovate and a climate of competitiveness and stressful atmosphere. On the other hand, the ability to keep up with trends and varying relationship reflects the innovative, collaborative, and homely atmosphere in Fave. Now I'll hand over my time to Josie to share with you more about the challenges for Fave.
Thank you, Desmond. This brings us to our first challenge when Groupon transitions to Fave. To build upon the points mentioned by Kenneth and on the culture of Groupon, we have identified the first key challenge to be how Fave influences a change in the organizational culture from what was ingrained in the ex-Groupon members to a better culture that Fave has now. As we know, that culture and leadership are always on the flip side of the same coin. To influence culture, it starts with the leaders at Fave. At strategic level leadership, AP, the managing director of Fave, attended to tasks that exhibit collaboration and innovation, such as building partnerships with DBS and Dash. He always helped merchants with digitalization as a priority. At an organizational level, we can see that Fave leaders set a flat organization structure to facilitate opportunities for employees to voice out their ideas, concerns, and collaborate across the organization. At a direct level, the leaders exhibited a culture of collaboration, innovation, and empowerment through their actions, as evident from Win when she mentioned that her direct leader, Ryan, is a good leader who thinks beyond his benefit and provides advice on how they can do better. This shows how both employee and employer work together to think of ways for improvement. Hence, with the mechanisms to shape culture, such as role modeling and structures of organization are in play at different levels of leadership in Fave, a healthy culture is cultivated through change implemented from top down to promote the culture of collaboration, innovation, and empowerment in Fave. Through a Zoom meeting, we asked Win on the presence of these components of DAC. We discovered that almost all components of DAC are absent, with only one present, that is the presence of clear roles and responsibilities. There is an absence of direction, as people were focused on profitability and driven by financial incentives when hitting KPIs, sacrificing on merchant relationships. She said that working in Groupon is like working with no limbs, meaning that she feels like she can't get any help. Employees are also not aligned because they are driven by financial incentives when meeting KPIs and do not show concern for people who are working on the ground, who has to deliver the news of rating percentage cuts. Lastly, she does not feel committed because she feels that she only has to hit her KPI target and will get a commission anyway. Transiting from Groupon to Fave meant that Fave must actualize DAC, and they did that through mutual influence through communication channels established, spanning from strategic to direct. All levels of leadership had something to do to help actualize DAC. The communication channels established were the monthly town halls, weekly business reviews, breakout calls, and their WhatsApp channel. The efforts on the strategic level made Wayne feel that there is a personal touch and soul of the vision for her leaders, and also the vulnerability of her boss, AP. She felt motivated to be part of the vision during business reviews too. Lastly, on a direct level, she felt that her boss, Ryan, did well by giving credit on good effort. Thus, she felt more motivated to contribute. Now, I'll hand my time over to Amanda to share about the threats of leadership.
Thank you, Josie. I will now be moving on to talk about the threats of leadership when Groupon transitioned to Fave. We will first study the threat of personalized power motive in Groupon. According to Win, who had many interactions with top management, There was an unhealthy competitive culture among the top leaders who tried to outshine each other during discussions. She added that this was because they viewed their role in Groupon merely as a springboard to jump to higher positions. This power play led to inefficient meetings which were not centered around improving the business. Moreover, a lack of feedback avenues made available to employees led to their disengagement and lack of voices heard. Quoting Deborah Grenfell, it takes effort by leaders to prevent power from binding or corrupting them. So what did Fave do differently? We used Suba's leadership model to analyze how Fave overcame personalized power through an inclusive leadership approach. For Model A, we can see that there was a good selection of leaders. From our conversation with AP, we understand that Fave leaders are passionate and consider employee and organizational needs. He also emphasized a listening culture as his personal leadership mantra. For Model B, through management programs such as Fave Up, leadership values, norms, and expectations are developed. Through the training, stronger bonds among leaders are also forged. For Model C, we can see that power is distributed, and leaders ensure that employees' opinions are heard and encouraged through spontaneous ideas pitching. These ideas are later concretized together to work for Fave's customers and merchants. In order to strengthen Model D, we suggest that Fave can have a better feedback system through data analytics, as we have learned about in the case of Project Oxygen in Google. This can be used for appraisal reports for management and to improve their behavior. Moving on to the second threat of leadership, which is too much management and too little leadership. As quoted from Win, Groupon is all about work and productivity. While that is normal in a large MNC firm where efficiency is key and a lot of planning has to be done, too much management leads to an absence of motivation and inspiration from top management. This is supported by a lack of direction, alignment, and commitment in Groupon, as explained by Josie previously. The lack of purpose and meaning in employees' work could be one of the reasons why Groupon failed to innovate quickly in a highly digitized industry, and we can see that by the end of 2015, its stock price had hit an 87% loss from its initial IPO. Again, what did Fave do differently? We can see that as a startup, Fave leaders set high KPIs to drive efficiency. However, more than that, they are also very strong in terms of transformational leadership, as they are concerned about inspiring and motivating employees. We can see that Fave's employees are aligned to the shared vision to innovate and work towards a cashless society. Hence, we find that a balance of management and leadership is required to drive innovation and work which employees find purposeful and meaningful. I will now be passing on the time to Olivia, who will be explaining more about Suba's models.
These are the Suba models of leadership that we have observed from Groupon and Fave. It is apparent that various Suba's models can exist in an organization because it depends on context. Model A is seen during the hiring and selection process of Fave's leaders who meet the desired criteria. Model B is exemplified during the decision-making process. Model C is displayed during group discussions and the ideation process. Hence, for different processes and contexts, Suba's models A to C can be observed. For Groupon, Model A was mentioned by Amanda, where the manager wields power and authority and top management leaders constantly tried to outshine each other to climb the corporate ladder. Model B was seen as Groupon has a hierarchical leadership structure, a group at the top, and the need for approval from top management. For Fave, Model A appeared in a specific context. For example, Wynne mentioned that leaders were chosen based on empathy and their ability to solve problems. Model B was displayed as the top management aligns the vision amongst their teams during monthly town halls, and some decisions still require top management approval. Model C is usually seen during the ideation process and brainstorming. Fave's flat leadership structure is seen from the open culture of discussion during top management and department meetings, where different employees take initiative to voice their ideas. Fave should implement all four models of leadership in its organization. Hence, both vertical Model A and shared leadership Model C and D should be integrated across all layers of its organization. Model A is observed when task-oriented leaders are selected to maintain good business relations and solve critical problems. Hence, the leaders need to be empathetic, have change-related behaviors, and those who are too task-focused should be sieved out. Model B is seen when synergy is developed among top management to ensure Fave's shared vision alignment. The emergence of distinct leadership positions and strong team development among leaders will be useful for career progression as Fave expands. Model C is displayed when promoting an open organizational culture for ideating to increase Fave's competitiveness. This model seems to be working well and will be useful for fast visioning and execution of ideas as Fave expands. Faster adaptation to changes in the business environment will allow Fave to quickly introduce new products.
Model B is present when Fave strengthens its innovation and learning in the technological sector. Fave should eventually work towards this model by developing systemic guidelines and using enterprise resource planning systems for stronger collaborations to meet Fave's goal of digitalization and collaboration. To conclude the first half of our presentation, we hope that you've identified these key takeaways from leadership in transition. Under the unique context of an acquisition, Fave's leadership successfully transformed their culture and leadership strategy. Every level of leadership can do something to promote real-world organizational culture. Developing a robust communication channel is key to concretizing DAC. A right balance of leadership, power, and management is needed to effect optimal change in an organization. Depending on specific contexts, all SUBAS models can coexist and should be strengthened to allow for successful transition in Fave. Now, Kenneth will introduce our team's learning processes and analysis.
Thank you, Olivia. Now, moving on to our second portion of our presentation, our team's learning processes and analysis. To start off, our team will be utilizing Tuckman's stages of group development to illustrate how this team project has affected our team effectiveness and team performance. First, in the forming stage, we have crafted our V's and 3R's. We then analyze our team dysfunctions in the storming stage and how we resolve those in our norming stage by revising our V's and 3R's. Finally, we evaluate our team learning and how we performed in the performing stage. In Tuckman's forming stage, we started off with our vision of an enthusiastic team that creates enriching experiences while striving towards excellence. Following that, we established our well-being goals and laid out our rules with some unique ones, such as replying to team members' messages each day, within each day, and listening deeply and voicing out our needs. Additionally, our relationships were charted out so that we can keep those in check throughout the project. Before we move on to our storming stage, our team would like to share with you a team conflict that happened. Midway through the project, after one of our discussions, everyone was assigned to the part of the task that we were all seemingly comfortable with, and one of us even proposed that we should prepare our parts by the next meeting. Everyone agreed. However, when we met on Microsoft Teams the next meeting, two members actually stayed muted for a while and hesitated to speak up. In fact, the parts assigned to them were incomplete. When further questioned by the other team members, these two members said that they didn't understand what was being discussed in the previous meeting. This caused the rest to be infuriated because they were actually being prompted several times during the previous meeting, do you guys have any other questions? And yet, they were hesitant and unwilling to seek help and clarify the doubts. So when being asked why they didn't voice up in the questions and communicate the issues as they were working on their parts, they eventually voiced that they were worried that the other members would see them as being ignorant. So now, deeply reflecting on this conflict that happened in our group, let me now pass my time to Amanda, who will share more about our team dysfunctions and the realities of leadership.
Thank you, Kedav. I will now be analyzing the team dysfunctions that our project group encountered initially with reference to Lencioni's 5 dysfunctions of a team. As described by Kenneth, there seemed to be a lack of psychological safety in our team, and this could be seen through our lack of communication. This brings me to speak about our first team dysfunction identified, which was a lack of trust. This could be due to the fact that prior to the project, none of us knew each other. Hence, relationships had to be built from scratch. We also had a different workload and commitment, which resulted in different expectations and standards. Lastly, our differences in personalities and working styles added on to the unwillingness to share vulnerabilities, resulting in missed opportunities to tap on each other's strengths. As seen from our team experience, there were 2 team members who had a more introverted personality and indirect style of working, which gave rise to their reluctance to ask for help. This leads me to the second team dysfunction identified, which was a lack of accountability. This was seen from some signs of social loafing and mediocrity in our team deliverables as a result of unclear rules and rules. There was also evidently a lack of initiative to offer help beyond our scope of responsibilities, resulting in missed deadlines and in turn, frustrations and resentment among team members. As seen from our team dynamics, there were some members who stepped up to take on the leadership role more actively than others. This supports the data that we tabulated from our team's Big 5 personality traits and motivation to lead. As seen from the graphs on this slide, we observe a wide variation in our team's Big 5 personality traits and 3 types of MTL, suggesting that some team members have more potential to emerge or to be effective as leaders. This also brings me to speak about the realities of leadership. That firstly, it is in fact difficult to effect shared leadership, as trust needs to be established among members and effort is required to coordinate for task interdependence. Secondly, individual differences such as conflicting schedules result in a less than optimal attendance for team meetings, making teamwork and decision-making challenging. I will now be passing on the time to Desmond, who will be sharing with us more about the norming stage.
Thank you, Amanda. Now we realize that there is an issue within the team. We tried to make an attempt to resolve it by thinking of what the root cause was. When we pan out the causes, it becomes clear to us that a platform for deeper communication to foster psychological safety was missing. Back then, we decided to have an over-the-meal bonding, where it's a more relaxed environment and allows us to talk more about our personal lives. This in turn helped us to open the closed door within us about the concerns for our project as we talk over the meal. And it felt so satisfying for the first time because it's the first time that the members were really communicating without holding back. We thought that there needs to be more of this conversation and other processes to resolve this dysfunction. So we reviewed and retained some of the processes that are already in place, such as our regular reviews on the work progress. This helps to provide a platform to allow everyone to talk about and help each other on work-related issues for collective performance. Now, secondly, our team decided that the expectations on the standard of works has to be clearer, such as the consensus on the basic content that needs to be in, so that everyone chips in and with clarity of desired outcome, it boosts the accountability and the quality of work. Thirdly, we came out with new solutions such as having a systematic process for feedback on the work, where we would go one round to point out one good thing and one thing that need to be improved on. This helps us to increase accountability and communication through the process of voicing out and eventually to collective performance as a team. Next is having a purposeful small talks between the discussion of our project as a way of taking small breaks. We can discuss about interesting things that has occurred for the day to freshen ourselves up and foster team bonding, break down personal barriers, and also to create an environment for more open communication. Now, all of these solutions will then help to foster a psychological safety among the members with systematic feedback as a frame of process for learning, coupled with reviews and small talks generating the initiative to voice out things on our mind. Hence, from this process of discovering our issues to making an attempt to resolve it, it highlights our strength in our collective commitment of wanting to do well together that leads us to recognize the issues. And as we open our closed door through personal conversation, our willingness to voice out and not fear conflict help us to develop the solutions to improve as a team. As our team work to improve on the dysfunction, shared vision, social support, and voices through reviews, small talks, and feedback were strengthened. This helps to build towards a shared leadership within the team. I'll now pass my time on to Josie, who will bring us more into the learning process for our team.
Thank you, Desmond. Together with the solutions for our team dysfunction, we also have our well-being roles, functional roles, V3Rs to help create our team structure, which will help strengthen psychological safety and in turn team learning. To understand more about team learning from Banderson's research, roles help us create a safe and predictable environment for our project and clarity around our roles, procedures, and priorities. Because of that, we shared more information due to a stronger intra-group trust established, leading to less conflict and ultimately contributing to a stronger team learning environment due to the fostering of our team structure. As we journeyed through our team project together, we realized that our V3Rs have shifted from what we initially planned. We swapped from enthusiastic to efficient because we realized that our enthusiasm has subsided as the weeks go by, because of our many other commitments and modules to deal with. Instead of forcing ourselves to be enthusiastic, we decided to be more understanding with each other when we voice out our needs, such as requiring more time. Instead, we think efficient is a better vision for us because we want to handle our time wisely and produce quality work, especially after considering the time we have spent resolving our team conflict. As such, efficient works better for us. Re-evaluating our well-being team roles, Kenneth took on a new role as a monitor evaluator. During our meetings, we found that Kenneth always voiced out his opinions on what he thinks, either on suggestions on how to deliver a point more clearly or a new viewpoint on lens we can look at the situation from. He helps to organize our ideas during our brain dumps and discussions, is strategic, and judges our work accurately based on the project requirements. Desmond has a new role of specialist too. We realized that Desmond took on the specialist role because of his background at Fave. He helped to bring in the in-depth knowledge about Fave's operation, which the rest of us are unfamiliar with. Revising our team roles, we added a new role, done is better than perfect. We realized that we are a group that leaned towards perfectionism and wanted to create the best slides possible, even at our first meeting. After some of us failed to meet the first deadline, we figured that we should work towards small steps in our journey at this project. Then, we set our expectations for each other more appropriately and also told ourselves to input the key points first.
A new relationship implemented was to take criticism as a learning opportunity. Because of our team conflict, we did not want anyone to have bad feelings. We will not take criticism as an attack and back off on being defensive. We can use this opportunity to be self-aware and improve ourselves to learn to be humble.
Finally, in terms of functional roles, I took on a new role as an opinion giver, as I realized that being proactive in providing opinions will help us bounce off each other's ideas and come up with better ones. Kenneth took on the new role of orienter, as he helps us to summarize what we have accomplished and often keeps us on track. Amanda took on the new role of elaborator, as she uses her knowledge to concretize our ideas with facts. Now I'll pass on my time to Olivia to share about our performing stage.
Thank you, Josie. On to our performing stage, I will share more about how our team achieved shared leadership. For internal factors after the conflict, we worked towards an adjusted shared purpose, where being efficient was more suitable than being enthusiastic. Due to time constraints, managing our time more wisely was more effective. Since our contributions were interconnected, we maintained regular progress updates via Telegram to keep everyone apprised. This method also helped as we were able to seek social support when we were unsure of certain topics and give credit for great ideas contributed. To encourage members to clarify their doubts, our new rule of done is better than perfect helped us to reserve judgments that could disturb our psychological safety and facilitate a safe environment to enable members to develop their voices and be more outspoken during discussions. We also addressed conflicts as they arose to alleviate any tension and differences. As for the external factor, our external coach was Prof, who helped our team see the bigger picture by realizing deeper insights and thinking of creative approaches to leadership. Evaluating our performance, our team leadership closely resembled SUA Model C, as we had an open culture of discussion with no appointed leader. During the brainstorming process, team members stepped up to pitch their ideas, which were implemented based on feasibility. Furthermore, team members had the flexibility to delegate tasks, and we relied on each other for leadership and skill sets by assuming responsibility for our assigned tasks. This team approach worked well, since the project was so complex that solutions required members with extensive knowledge in particular topics, and interdependence of tasks was required because tasks were too massive to be completed alone, especially given the limited time frame. Hence, dependence on each other was necessary for the timely completion of the project. With reference to Berg's meta-analysis, due to our display of task-focused and person-focused behaviors, such as boundary spanning and empowerment, it allowed us to achieve higher team effectiveness and team learning, especially since task interdependence was high. For example, after sharing research information, we asked each other for their opinions, which empowered them to give constructive feedback. This contributed to team effectiveness and team learning. However, due to insufficient time to further develop trust and an imperfect level of team psychological safety, this prevented us from fully developing systemic leadership in SUA Model D. To achieve a self-managing team in future, we could establish a systemic shared leadership. We could exercise team-building activities to develop greater trust and provide individual feedback to improve our performance in our Belbin team and functional roles. Lastly, we could work on developing stronger interaction and coordination to complete tasks more efficiently. With that, we hope that our presentation has brought you new insights and learning points. Thank you for your attention, and we will now open the floor for any questions.